What's going on, everybody? It's RoarYG here, coming at you with a brand new video, and today I want to talk about the ban list. So unless you've been sitting under a rock for like, I don't know, the past roughly 10 hours, 9 hours, you'll know that Konami dropped the Forbidden List changes for May 17th, and boy were these changes something. So the weirdest thing about them is that they take place immediately, instead of like after a few days or after the weekend for a big event. No, it literally, as it was posted on Twitter, which is where I saw it when I was in the middle of my 4th period game design class, it said these changes go into effect immediately, which completely screws over everyone going to nationals and regionals and stuff this weekend, and I think Hartford as well. And we're once again being cucked by saying that the next update after this will be in a few months. I saw, they might have changed it now, but I saw that at one point it was like December 25th, which is really weird because like I swear that's what my friend told me, and then I saw it on Twitter, but now it says in a few months, which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing now that it says that, because December 25th, if that is true, means that we'll be in a 7-month-long format with no ban lists, which is kind of terrifying to think about. I really hope that isn't the case. I don't feel like sitting in a 7-month eternal format, but it did more than just shake up the regionals and stuff coming along, because we did actually get changes, of course, and these changes sure were something. So if we scroll down to the bans, these are the only 3 bans, all of them being Link monsters, which is funny. The blue card list in the ban section is just continuously ever growing. And we have Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon, Prank Kids Meow Meow Moo, and Predaplant Verte Anaconda. So Auroradon is not only a really hard hit to pile decks that are playing the 1-card Halt combos that allowed them to get to the 3 negates, I believe it is, but it also hits things like Swordswell that were also using Auroradon to play through hand traps after getting its main combo stopped, you know, got impermed or something. You can activate E-Tail, you get a Punk out, or have Nidhara or something, and you can go full Halt combo, which nets you your basic end board. And with it out of the way, it's really going to hurt both of those decks, especially Swordswell, because Swordswell really didn't have too much else going for it at the moment. There's a couple of engines that you can play. You can play the Branded in High Spirits package, which is really cool. You play the Mirror Jade in your extra deck. You send it, search your Ecclesia, especially your Ecclesia, or normal your Ecclesia, and go into your regular plays, and then during the end phase, Ecclesia adds itself back for follow-up. You can also do the Mare stuff, which I do have a deck profile of, and a combo tutorial from our good friend M-Rocket on the channel. Please go ahead and check that out if you are interested. But the Auroradon hit came to not too much of a surprise to me and to a lot of other people, but it came as a surprise to some because a lot were expecting Crystal and Halka Fibrax to get banned, but it did literally just get reprinted, and while that hasn't stopped Konami before, it was a bit less of a time gap from now compared to other ban lists in which something was hit after a reprint. Plus, I am personally on the bandwagon that Auroradon is a much more unfair card and needed to go in the first place. I feel like Link Cross and Auroradon were the main things that made Halka Fibrax broken and unfair in the first place, despite what others may tell you, but that is just my opinion. I don't really feel like arguing that in the comments. I've been arguing about it way too much over the past couple of weeks, so it's fine. But Auroradon being hit will kind of just put a complete end to the really broken Halt combos, at least for now, until something else crazy comes out that does something as good as making 3 tokens for free. But until then, Hulk will finally be leveled to just a really good card that summons a tuner that can do a little bit of synchro plays and especially help tier 2 in lower decks. Personally, I love using it in Atlantean Mermail, which helps get you out your Fishborg launcher. But I think that is really cool, and I don't personally think Auroradon will be missed by most, if any, players. Prank Kids Meow Meow Moo came to a bit of a surprise to a lot of people, actually, but to be honest, it's probably their best way of hitting the Adventure engine indirectly, because this was arguably the best deck to take advantage of the Adventure token engine, because Despia is honestly better played pure in my opinion. I don't think Adventure Despia is the better build. But this deck, until the Despia stuff came out, or the Branded Structure deck came out, was absolutely dominating. And so if, in order to prevent hitting the Adventure package, which they would have had to at this point because of how dominant it is, they simply banned Meow Meow Moo, which kind of just completely destroyed Prank Kids. Now you'd have to open something like Polymerization if you want to actually go into your good plays, or have another way to get a body on board like Pranks. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to go into many of your Prank Kids plays at all. And so a lot of Prank Kid players are probably just going to have to migrate to a different deck, which is kind of sad, but I'm kind of sick of seeing this deck in the format, so I'm sorry Prank Kids players, but I feel like I had to go. And then Verte finally being gone is huge, because now not only do we have to worry about literally every insane fusion spell that uses materials from deck, but also it makes something like Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer a lot more risky to play, especially when it comes to something like the Scythe lock. So instead of having to hit Scythe and then leaving something like Verte on like going free, they can hit the Verte, make it super inconsistent to Scythe Lock and to get DPE out, and not only get rid of the Scythe Lock mostly as a threat, but also completely, like, hamper the ability of DPE to be played in most decks, because I feel like without Verte, most people aren't going to be playing the 2 Fusion Destiny and then the 2 Bricks in the main deck, no matter how good the engine may be, just because of the sheer risk of drawing it and then having to top deck the Fusion spell before you top deck any of the Bricks. And I think that's a really good way of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and I think Verte was just something that really had to go because it was enabling way too many gross stuff. And so finally something like Dragoon can be relegated to decks that can actually either use it in their native sense like Dark Magician, or utilize some other sort of substitution method such as Virtual World and both Dragon Link and Despia. And then DPE can finally most likely stay to heroes for the most part. That was all that we actually got for the bans, which I thought was pretty interesting, but overall I was really happy about it because I think these bans are really the only things that needed to be banned. I don't think there's anything that's really disgusting that's out there running around. I don't think so. Mystic Mine is kind of annoying, but I don't really think it's going to be too crazy, even with the Mist Rune stuff coming out. I think Mystic Mine is actually really bad in Mist Rune because you'd rather have their field spell up at all times, but I don't know, that's just me. But I think the limits were something that were a lot more interesting, especially with how many of them there were. Jet Synchron coming back was a really obvious one. I kept telling everybody if Auroradon goes, we can literally get O-Lion and Jet Synchron back, and we've been able to get Glow Up Bulb back, which please free Glow Up Bulb, he literally did nothing wrong. But they're probably just testing the waters with Jet Synchron at first because it's arguably the worst one because you do have to put something back for its effect, I believe, to special itself. But I'm sure that within the next couple of ban lists, we'll get O-Lion back as well, especially because Auroradon can't summon it from deck anymore. I think the only Hulk tuner that we can never get back is something like Steam, because Steam is like a free 3 or 4 monsters for the price of 1. But I think Jet Synchron coming back was super easy to spot from a mile away as long as Auroradon was hit, and so I'm really glad, especially for people that did like Jet Synchron. I know stuff like, I think certain Adamancipator builds were using it without Auroradon, and then obviously you have Synchron builds as well, because Synchron's a really cool deck as well. And so this is going to help out those smaller decks a lot more, and we'll no longer see abuse in these big decks. Mung Keyboard is something that took me and a lot of other people by surprise. I never thought Monkey could come back. I said multiple times, no, we cannot get Monkey back. This is a 1-card scale, but I think Konami is slowly giving Pendulum their stuff back. I kind of feel like at this point, Pendulum is a bit power crept, even with the new support out of Difo. Beyond the Pendulum is just a bit more of a consistency thing, and it has a really big downside in the fact that you have to Pendulum summon after you summon it. And so I think slowly we can get every almost every Pendulum card back off the list, at least to 1, because I don't really think Pendulum is going to be doing anything too crazy anytime soon. Red Rose Dragon I think is also kind of nice. It's a bit weird, but it does hit more of the pile decks as well as Dragon Link indirectly, because it was a really good card in the adventure engine. I believe you played it at like 2 or 3. Wasn't it like sort of a way to get free synchros or a free Striker Dragon on board and get really consistent through the adventure token engine without having to use the effect of something on normal summon? I don't really remember too much. I wasn't paying too much attention to like the based combos, but I think it's an overall pretty good hit, especially considering the representation of pile decks. It's really just more of like a little slap on the wrist than anything, but I think it's overall just it's fine, honestly. Yata-Garasu was really shocking. So a lot of people have been saying that Yata can come back because it's bad, but I was kind of part of the bandwagon that said Yata should stay banned forever, mainly just due to the significance of it. It was the longest lasting and the first card on the Forbidden and Limited list, and now it's finally the last card of the original list to come back. And so it's a bit like melancholy, but I do think it's deserved a Yata-Garasu because it is a really mediocre card anymore. It's actually kind of a bad card now, but it's just so weird seeing it now on the limited section. It's something I got so used to seeing in the forbidden section that it's just kind of crazy to me. Hulk to 1 was okay. I know certain builds of pile decks and stuff were playing 2 Hulk and like Adamancipator and stuff, I guess. They're playing 2 in case the 1 gets stopped, you have the next for follow-up, and also because you can make the 1 for its summon effect, and then link off into all your other stuff, and then make a second Hulk for its effect to summon the Shooting Riser, which, speaking of, Shooting Riser to 1 was really strange. I don't think I've ever seen anyone play Shooting Riser at more than 1, maybe 1 list that was experimenting with it with the second Hulk, but I don't think this does anything. Like, most people were only playing 1 anyway, so it was just kind of a weird hit. But I think the thing that got to a lot of people, that shocked people the most, was Change of Heart. Change of Heart is a card that, much like Snatch Steal, that people thought could like never really come back ever because of how good it was. But let's be real here. Change of Heart is just worse Snatch Steal. Keep in mind that Snatch Steal being an equip spell means that it does not target, and so you just get a free just yoink, and you get to take it, and then you have no restrictions on that. Change of Heart not only lasts for 1 turn, but also targets, and the lasting for 1 turn doesn't really do much, granted, but the fact that it targets makes it significantly worse than Snatch Steal, which could literally out anything. If we had Snatch Steal, stuff like Dragoon or things with similar protection would not be a problem at all. So while Change of Heart is definitely a like big surprise, I think they've really just been throwing like a little dartboard of like stuff to surprise bring back or surprise like unrestrict, like how Regeki was last Banlist when they brought it to 3. I do think that it's actually going to be completely fine. I think it actually might be a bit healthy. It helps out going second a lot, especially if you do play the Mind Control as well. I remember seeing like 2 or 3 Mind Control in every side deck and some main decks back in like 2018 Sky Striker Trickstar format. That was really, really fun. Take a shot every time I say really, really, or super, or whatever in any of my videos. It's so weird. Yeah, I think Change of Heart was actually a really cool, like, release. And I hope we keep getting these really nice releases in the future. I hope we get something like, you know, Heavy Storm, or some random thing like, I don't know, Last Will. Bro, give us Soul Charge, Konami. That'll be a great idea. Give us Soul Charge back. That would be beautiful. And of course, we also did have Time Seal, which is completely fine. This card could have come to 12 and nobody would be playing it. This card is terrible. It's just worse Yada. There was a lot of limits on this list, both to 1 and coming back to 1. And I think they were all really cool, except for, you know, something like Shooting Riser, which is a bit pointless. But I think a lot of them were really good and really healthy for the game. It does suck not seeing anything from Adventure on here, like Right or Aqua Enchantress. But I guess it's just something we'll have to wait on, considering just how new the engine is. All of these semi-limits, I think, were actually incredible. Dynamite Knight to 2 is really good for True Draco, but it still does nothing for them. Cyber Angel Ben 10 is a really good boost to something like Drytron, which is falling completely out of favor for the most part, considering that it's 2-card combos in a 1-card combo world. It's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Tenki to 2 is really cool, because Tri-Brigade not only has fallen off, even with the branded stuff, but also it makes me really excited because you guys probably know that I am an avid fan of Bird Up, and I just finished Dogmatica Invoke Branded Shaddoll. I'll probably play it for a couple of weeks, but I think 2 Tenki is just going to put me back on Bird Up because it just makes it just a slight bit more consistent, and I am really all here for it. Desires to 2, finally the optimal ratio of desires, and if you play 3, I'm going to backhand you. Light Stage could have come to 12 again, and nothing would have happened. And then Wall of Revealing Light, I always thought was a bit strange of a hit. I knew there was probably some sort of like odd effect thing that you could do with it, but I really don't think it'll see play in literally anything, like even jank decks. It could be funny in Dinomorphia, I guess, to put your life points under 2k immediately, but oh well, whatever. And I think the unlimits were all really warranted as well. Night Assailant did get the errata, or is getting the errata. I don't think anyone's gonna abuse it in like the 5-day time span. Trishuleta 3 is something that I actually think is really cool as well, because I don't really think it's gonna see any sort of abuse. What deck is going to commit all of the resources to hand loop with Trishula when you could do literally anything else with all of those resources, especially with how fragile a Trishula hand loop would be? I've never seen a deck play more than 1, maybe 2 Trishula, and now, like, the only time I've seen 2 Trishula was when Dinosaur was still playing Extrav, but I don't know, like, show me some of your jank Trishula hand loop list for 2022. Mirage Stalio really is only being played at 1, maybe 2 copies max in most Salad lists. A Hero Lives is just whatever. I mean, it helps Hero a lot, especially with the Fusion Destiny to 2. Salamangreat Circle is pretty nice because no one really cares about Salamangreat getting more power. And then Scapegoat to 3 is something that's really warranted. I still remember seeing Scapegoat at 3 in like almost every main or side deck as well during the similar format, because 1-card Borreload was scary, guys. Ooh. So overall, what did I think about this ban list? So I did see it during school, so I'm sorry I couldn't give you a live reaction. This should be the last one that I won't be able to give you a live reaction to unless I like sleep in or something though. But I think overall this ban list is one of the best we possibly could have gotten, especially in terms of this current format and the current time frame we're in. Because yes, it would have been nice to see some hits to Adventure considering how much it's running around in every deck, right? It would have been nice to see even some sort of remote acknowledgement of Despia. But you gotta think how new both of those things are, at least the branded stuff for Despia. You have to think that you really can't do too much to the deck without completely murdering it. I remember when Ben 10 got limited, like as soon as Drytron came out, everyone was really mad about that was trying to play the deck. And so while Despia is probably going to be uncontended tier 1 for a good while until the next ban list or until new product comes out, I do think it was really healthy for the format. The Auroradon stuff completely shuts off the really degenerate Auroradon combos, and it kind of slaps Sword Soul on the wrist a little bit. Meow Meow Moo stops one of the most oppressive decks of the format and one of the most consistent decks of the format. Verte shuts down almost everything right now except for something like Despia, which, yeah, it's gonna hurt rogue decks, but to be fair, just the current meta anymore hurts rogue decks, because the current meta can play through just about any hand traps that the rogue decks could throw at them, and so that's why they're rogue decks for a reason. Monkey helps Pendulum after the new stuff came out. Red Rose is a slap on the wrist to pile into Dragon Link. Hulk to 1 is whatever. Change of Heart might be a little bit funnier for going second in case you want a free, boot gang of an opponent's monster, because if they have negates, they have to negate this, otherwise you're just going to get free shit. All of the semi-limit hits are really helpful to niche or rogue decks. I think this is my favorite part of the list, is just the semi-limits, because they all help, like, sort of tier 2 or lower decks just get so much better. Like I said, Dynamite helps True Draco a little bit in terms of the amount of monsters it can run. Ben 10 helps the consistency and power of Drytron. Tenki helps the consistency of Bird Up. Light Stage helps the Trickstar. Desires actually can replace the Desk Bot in Sword Soul, so it kind of helps it a little bit. And then all of the unlimits were perfectly warranted and completely fine. And I think especially compared to a list like last one, which was completely underwhelming, I think this list is a very refreshing ban list, considering, like, compared to what we could have gotten, right? We could have literally gotten, like, Auroradon to 1, you know, or like Prank Kids Pranks to 1, or Roxy's to 2, something like that. So yeah, overall, I do think this ban list is going to be super healthy for the format, but that's just my opinion. Tell me what you think about it in the comments below, because that's going to have to do it for the video. If you liked it, please sure to leave a like, as I'll put this video and the channel into YouTube recommended. And if you liked it and you want to see more content like it, like the rest of my awesome Yu-Gi-Oh content that I try to get up as often as I can, perhaps consider subscribing, because it helps out the channel more than anything else, and it is completely free. But once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.